Hello, I'm Robert Lambert from Robert Lambert Specialty Foods, and today I'm making a fruit stuffed pork loin with a brandy cream sauce. The fruit I'm using is figs, and I'm going to start with making the stuffing for the roast. I started yesterday. I took 1/4 pound of black figs, cut them, put them in a glass jar, added a cup of brandy, and cook them in the microwave for 2 minutes. And the reason I like the microwave for heating things through is that there's no heat coming from the bottom, there's no chance of it scorching, and it penetrates the food completely and allows it to soften up and allows it to absorb the liquid. I left that overnight. The figs have absorbed their share of brandy, and I've drained the remaining cognac, which is lovely now. It's completely immersed with fig flavor. And I've sauteed 2 shallots and a tablespoon of butter, and I'm going to add that to the figs. The third ingredient in the stuffing is my Robert Lambert fig jam. Figs are another fruit that's difficult to make into a jam. They don't really have much flavor. In fact, they're extremely alkaline. I've even been burned picking figs from the alkaline sap. It's very, very strong. So there isn't a lot of acid, and when you add a lot of sugar, you end up with a very flat flavor unless you add a lot of other acid. So I'm going to add 1/2 cup of the fig jam. So this is well combined, and it looks like it's ready to go. I'm going to cut a slit. It's a center cut pork loin roast, and I need to pierce it and create a pocket to stuff with the stuffing. So I'm using a thin bladed knife that's just going to fit through, and I'm going to get right through the center. And then I'm going to open it up a little bit so it's about 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to start stuffing the incision with fig stuffing. And if you have a lot of this left over, if you can't fit it all in, it's fine. You can just save it and add it to the sauce at the end, and it'll make a nice complement. I think pork is particularly nice with fruit. It's sort of neutral, and it picks up flavors, the fruitiness. So that's stuffed, that's fine, and now I'm going to grind my herbs, dry herbs, and salt and pepper to pepper the outside of the meat before I brown it. And I'm using my salt, 1/2 teaspoon of dried sage, and 1/2 teaspoon of dried rosemary. And I really like to use a mortar and pestle with this because it really makes it into a powder. It coats the meat evenly. I think dry herbs really, they're more concentrated, they have more flavor, although I like to use fresh herbs whenever I can. This is a case where dried herbs are preferable. Okay, I'm just finishing up adding the rub to the surface of the meat, and now I'm going to brown it for 4 minutes over medium-high heat just to brown it nicely and get it ready to put in the oven. And I'm going to start it fat side down, add a little more fat or oil to the pan so it'll brown nicer and be less likely to burn. Don't need to worry about the ends. You don't want to disturb the stuffing. It's fine the way it is. Well, that looks fine. And now what I'm going to do is remove it momentarily. Turn off the heat. Well, just like this, I think it's really nice to make it into a one-dish meal and use root vegetables that are in season. I'm using a yam, and you cut it in about a 1-inch dice. a couple of carrots, some celery for a little liquid, and parsnips. I'm saying 2 parsnips, but then I went to the store yesterday and I found that they were the size of my arm. So you have to be flexible. It's not 2 parsnips, it's 1 if they're the size of your arm. A few Brussels sprouts too, and what I do, I like to trim them and cut a X on the stem end, because that's the hard end, and that way they're going to cook more evenly. So I formed a bed of the vegetables so that the meat can rest on top and the juices will flavor all the vegetables as it cooks. It's all set. I'm going to put this in a 375 degree oven. And this will cook about 40 to 50 minutes. We'll check it with a meat thermometer. And you want it to read about 150. So now that the roast is in the oven, we're going to work on the sauce that goes over it. This is a cognac cream sauce, and I'm starting with the brandy that was reserved from draining the figs. Wait till that comes up to temperature. There it goes. You want to burn off the alcohol. Really gives it a nice flavor. Oh boy, isn't that fun? Dancing flames. And they are subsided. Now I'm going to add the rest of the fig jam. Now after the fig jam is heated through and the cognac is burned off, I'm going to add a 1.5 cups of chicken stock. You really want to use homemade chicken stock from this. You can't use the stuff in the can. It's just water. It may have flavor like chicken, but it doesn't react like chicken when it doesn't have the property of a gelatin. And that's the thickening agent that I want to finish the sauce. Add the chicken stock, and you want this to reduce by half before you add the cream, and then you're going to reduce it by half again, and you're going to end up with a cup of sauce. Now we'll just let this come to a boil. I'm also going to add a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar because the fig jam is sweet and you just need some acid in there, especially since I'm using cream. Cream usually blocks salt and acid flavors. And you're going to need a little extra in there to compete with that, although you want the smoothness of the cream sauce. You don't want it to hide the flavor. And now I think it's time for the cream. And the cream and the fruit are going to be a nice counterbalance to those root vegetables, the earthiness of the potato and carrot and parsnip. Now that just goes and reduces by half again, and we'll just let that go. Okay, well there's our finished roast, surrounded by its root vegetables. I'm going to give it a slice and see how the stuffing fared. We're going to add the sauce. Okay, it's sauced, and there we have our fruit stuffed pork loin roast with brandy sauce and fig jam.